In the name of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the French Revolution set out to break the chains of tyranny. But in 1793, the dream had rotted into something far darker. The guillotine replaced the crown, fear silenced freedom, and the Republic turned its blade inward. This is the story of how the French Revolution, and in its hunger for purity, began to devour its own. In Paris, revolutionaries toppled statues, stripped churches, and remade Notre Dame the Temple of Reason. Time itself gets a makeover, with year one ticking off and Sundays are erased. But the hope of freedom is fading fast. The guillotine's beat echoes through the streets, and fear replaces trust, and the sans-culottes grieve their champion, Marat, murdered in his bath. From the bloody massacres in Lyon to the drownings in Nantes, the Republic fights on all fronts. And France stands at the breaking point, with all the allies turning on each other. In 1793, the French Revolution entered its most radical phase, seeking not only to dismantle the monarchy, but to erase the cultural and religious foundations of the old world. Statues of kings were torn down, royal tombs were desecrated, and churches were stripped of their sacred symbols. The revolutionaries launched a sweeping campaign of de-Christianization, abandoning Catholicism in favor of reason and natural philosophy. Notre Dame Cathedral was rededicated as the Temple of Reason, and the newly introduced cult of reason celebrated liberty, logic, and the power of human thought. Rivers, the sun, and the forces of nature replaced saints as objects of reverence. Even the structure of time was overthrown. The traditional calendar was abolished and replaced by the revolutionary calendar, marking 1792 as year one. Sundays vanished, and religious festival gave way to celebrations of agriculture, virtue, and labor. In this new world, the revolution aimed to remake society from the ground up, guided not by faith but by reason. By 1793, disillusionment had begun to seep into the heart of the revolution, where once the people had risen against a single tyrant, the king, now they whispered bitterly that in his place had come 1,000 tyrants, each more ruthless than the last. The promise of liberty had given way to surveillance, denunciations, and fear. The streets of Paris, once alive with the cries of freedom, now echoed with the mechanical rhythm of the guillotine. Revolutionary committees ruled with iron authority, and neighbors turned on neighbors to prove their loyalty to the cause. Power, once centralized in the crown, had not vanished. It had fractured and multiplied, and in the name of virtue and reason, the revolution devoured its own. The people began to wonder whether the old chain had simply been replaced by new ones. The Republic is now engaged in a no-holds-barred struggle, and the revolutionary motto sharpens into something darker: liberty, equality, fraternity, or death. But to the great dismay of the sans-culottes, the first victim of the new phase is the man they once called the friend of the people. Jean-Paul Marat, the first defender of the revolution and champion of the common people, is assassinated in his bathtub by a young Girondin sympathizer, Charlotte Corday. His death, immortalized by the painter Jacques-Louis David, transforms him into more than a man. He becomes a martyr, a revolutionary saint. From this moment forward, the revolution will show no mercy to its enemies. In the Vendée, the Committee of Public Safety demands nothing short of annihilation. Its generals are given extreme orders. The province must be scorched, its villages erased, and its inhabitants, if necessary, deported or destroyed. The Royalist and Catholic forces are ultimately crushed, but the cost is staggering. Tens of thousands perish, and in the city of Nantes, a revolutionary envoy named Jean-Baptiste Carrier oversees mass drownings in the Loire River. The so-called noyades, a grotesque and efficient method of extermination. The noyades of Nantes stand as one of the most infamous examples of how revolutionary justice descended into systematic mass murder. And when the monarchists seize control of the city of Lyon, the National Convention reacts with swift and merciless resolve. Joseph Fouché is dispatched, carrying with him a decree as cold as it is absolute. Lyon made war on liberty. Lyon is no more. The city's new name is erased from the map, renamed Ville Affranchie, the liberated city. And Fouché, once an unassuming schoolteacher and moderate Jacobin, reveals his true nature, cunning, ruthless, and enigmatic. As a representative on mission, he becomes an architect of revolutionary terror, suppressing counter-revolutionary resistance with brutal efficiency. In Lyon, mass executions are carried out using cannon grapeshot, mowing down prisoners by the dozens in a single volley, their bodies tumbling into mass graves. The revolution, once a promise of freedom, now devours both tyrants and dreamers alike. Liberty, it seems, has become indistinguishable from terror. Above the city, he famously hung a banner that declared, "The Republic has no need for scholars," a chilling symbol of the revolutionary obsession with purity and the totalitarian logic now gripping France. Fouché's campaign reached its brutal climax as he summoned more than 2,000 citizens before a makeshift tribunal. There was no pretense of justice. They were condemned in bulk and executed, often by firing squad, sometimes by cannon, and in what became one of the bloodiest purges of the entire revolution. But the tragedies did not end there. As the Republic waged its merciless war against the old world, the toll of its own soldiers, dead or missing, grew even higher. Now, the revolution turned its attention to one last royal figurehead, the former Queen Marie Antoinette of Austria. Imprisoned in the Conciergerie, her trial was little more than a theater, as the outcome had been decided long before the first arguments were heard. On October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette was found guilty of treason and conspiring with the enemies of the Republic. That same day, she was led to the scaffold, where the blade of the guillotine severed the last thread of the old monarchy. The Montagnards, now the dominant force in revolutionary France, are locked in a relentless struggle to purge the Republic of tyranny. But their battle is beginning to turn inward. Just days after the execution of Marie Antoinette, the Girondin deputies, once their political allies, are accused of treason. 21 of them are dragged before the Revolutionary Tribunal. The verdict is swift, the sentence inevitable. On October 31st, 1793, they are guillotined, sacrificed in the name of the Republic, one and indivisible. But the blade does not rest. More names soon follow, including the deputy Jean-Paul Rabot Saint-Étienne, charged with counter-revolutionary sympathies. As the months pass, the revolution descends into a deadly crescendo, a fratricidal war that now rages even within the Montagnards themselves. Paranoia runs high, and political rivalries sharpen into mortal threats. One faction, led by Camille Desmoulins and Georges-Jacques Danton, grows uneasy at the spiraling bloodshed, known as the Indulgents. They call for an end to the mass arrests and executions. For them, the revolution is in danger of devouring itself, and they believe Robespierre's growing power is to blame. Danton, ever the orator, warns, "The Romans debated the issues of state publicly, but when the enemy was at the gates of Rome, they put aside their internal conflicts and stopped fighting among themselves. Here, the enemy is at the gates, and all we do is destroy each other." But opposite the Indulgents stands another faction, the Extremists, hardliners who see no end to the purges. Some, like journalist Jean-René La Reverette, envision a new insurrection to cleanse the Republic once and for all. Even Robespierre, in their eyes, is too lenient. Caught between these two forces, moderation and fanaticism, the Committee of Public Safety finds itself under siege. To them, this internal strife can lead to only one outcome: weakness. And in a revolution, weakness is treason. Their response will be as swift as it is radical. Well, as we can see, things are escalating really fast. The revolution set out to free a nation, but in its pursuit of purity, it unleashed a nightmare. With every head that fell, the promise of liberty grew dimmer, but the terror was far from over, and the guillotine shadow still loomed large over Paris. The sans-culottes who once dreamed of freedom now live in a republic ruled by fear, where the guillotine claims heroes like Marat, queens like Marie Antoinette, and even old allies like the Girondins. Not that the queen was the hero at the time, the heroine at the time, but still, from the drowned victims of Nantes to the blood-soaked graves of Lyon, the price of this new world is staggering. Yet, the spark of liberty, equality, and fraternity still glows faintly, even as terror threatens to overcome everything. Do you think the revolution can reclaim its heart, or will it tear itself apart? Well, join me next time as we follow France's desperate fight to hold on to its ideals in the midst of the chaos. Thank you very much for following up, and I will see you next time. Bye.